welcome to another episode of It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed. Knowing that we're paying so much attention to men's mental health this month, especially for June, I knew I had a friend in the bag that I wanted to get onto the podcast and talk about. We've done a radio show before, Rich, and I know I've been on one of your podcasts, which was absolutely fantastic, and I had some people reach out to me because we were talking about trauma and meaning, but it's men's mental health. I know what your forte is. I know what your niche is, if you like. I know what your area of focus is. So I'm not going to tell everybody, but welcome to If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed, the Mind Management Mentors podcast. Rich, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Cuddy, and it's great to be on and meet you again. It's awesome. So my name's Rich, and I one half of a community trust company called What Makes a Difference, and we are a non-profit. The people that we work with are the armed forces, veterans, first responders, and their spouses. So what we deal with essentially is looking at transition stress. And it's that adjustment from service life to serving after. So when people leave, so the armed forces, blue light and all that is a highly structured organization. So you know what time of day you're turning up, you know where to be, what to wear, what times to parade, and all that goes along within camp and outside of camp within on exercises, operational tours, and all that sort of stuff. So when people leave those structured organizations, it can be really hard to understand where you're coming from, understand what the civilian world is like, because there's a huge grey space, there's a lot of ambiguity, and there's finding that fit within that space where you belong, because it's those formative years from like 18 to whenever, when most people are going out and they understand how to pay bills, how to get a dentist, how to get a doctor, what it's like in that civilian work environment as well. And so they're not bouncing around trying to find their place within the family, within the community, and within a working environment.
So it's the transition from armed forces back into
Civilian
normality, civilian life. And I can see and understand why that would be. I mean, but then again, to counter yours, I'm 46 and I still don't know how to make a dentist appointment. Why I still have to do that, and I was never in the army. So, But this is the things that got, because we're talking about men's mental health. So yes, there's ladies that transition as well, and I know that Ali probably works with a lot of the ladies because you work with Ali. So let's talk about Ali, even though Ali's not here. Just give Ali a little introduction.
Yeah. So Ali, she's up in Scotland area. So we've got Bolly Scotland, Jockland.
Aye,
that's it. And so we were both volunteering for a military charity, and we recognised there's a better solution to what's going on. That's being proactive and actually working with people before they leave that transition. Because at the moment, the programs, all they're looking at really is training, education, how to get employment and how to write CVs and all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's only right really two bottom layers and a bit of the third layer. So the other factors aren't taken into account of eventual self-actualization, where as we can help people self-actualize a bit quicker and smooth out that transition process. So the extreme ends of things, Cuddy, are when people transition, people will either go successfully transition straight into a career, straight into a job, they know what they're doing, they have a really smooth and easy transition. Maybe 5 years later, it might affect them. On a more extreme end of things, we know that people will end up potentially drugs, self-medicating drugs, alcohol, maybe domestic abuse, domestic violence, and ultimately some people, because they can't cope with it, is completing suicide.
Yeah. And suicide is quite high within men these days, isn't it? Yes, it is. Have you noticed within the studies of suicide within men that there's a high percentage of men from the armed forces?
There are. I can't remember the stats off my head, but the most typical age group is around about 25 years old. They are the most vulnerable from leaving the forces.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you were ex-forces,
I am, mate. Yeah.
Yes. What
Yes.
what was it you did? Because you, if I remember correctly from one of the conversations, when you were martial arts as well.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were. You. I remember that your background is martial arts as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what was I in? So I was in the Grenadiers.
Yeah.
Did 6 years and 20 days with them. Got out, so I didn't really know what to do myself. Because I couldn't see anywhere of how to progress career and stuff like that. Got out, left, went traveling for a little bit,
Yep.
and then came back home. And there was a letter waiting for me to say, would I like to go on operational tour to Cospo? And that was out with 445 Commando and the Duke of Boots. Went away on there, and then it was like, well, sort of, I don't know what to do with my life, so I rejoined it. I joined the Royal Signals.
Right.
Yeah. And I stayed in there and got out about just getting on for 11 years ago now.
Right. Yes. And where are you based, Rich?
So I'm based in Bristol Way, and
Yeah.
Ali, she's based up in Scotland, as we mentioned.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like yourself, Cuddy, we can work online as well.
Yes. Yeah. The online space is fantastic. So but so what that what I the reason we were talking is because you have it's a modality I'd not heard of. It was a concept that I'd not heard of, and I know you just touched on Maryslav's emotional needs. I genuinely believe that people's emotional needs are not focused on enough in a lot of therapies and a lot of coaching, and that Maryslav's emotional needs are pushed to the side quite a lot,
Yeah.
and they're not focused on it enough.
And
I love the emotional needs, and I use
yeah.
them a lot with my clients.
Mhm. And also, I think as well, with a lot of traditional talking therapies, is based on the incident rather than what's going on with that person.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they keep asking him, how do you feel about this? And how do you feel about
Yeah.
that? And, oh, what do you think about this? And how does that make you feel? No, rubbish. Want to talk about feelings? You'll get a solution.
Now, Rich, we 100% are. I just had a conversation with a new client coming on board, and I said, "Look, I'm not a counselor.
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach.
Mhm.
There's a therapeutic part to it, but we look for the
Yes,
solutions. We want
we
to
are.
find
Yeah.
out where the triggers are, why we've got the emotion that's not we want. We want to know where the triggers are and why we are. We can desensitize them and get people living life on their terms. It's
Yeah.
a simple way to help people move forward without talking about their problems. We know where the problem is. And I remember
Yeah.
somebody, I've just finished talking with a friend of mine that's been in cognitive behavioral therapy. And I like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's got its place.
Mhm.
And they were saying that they'd been speaking to someone for 2 years in cognitive behavioral therapy. And then they have one session with my friend. Oh my God, I think I'm like it's resolved. Exactly. We can
Yeah.
resolve it a lot quicker.
Why does it take 2 years for CBT to get a result? It's crazy.
So when I first learned CBT,
Mm.
the instructions on the box were you'll need anywhere between 15 to 20 sessions. I'm like, I'm not doing 15 to 20 sessions. So my first client, strangely enough, I thought, right, I'm going to do a 4 session package. Let's find out what the problem is, find out where it is, and move them forward. And in a space of a month and 4 sessions, this young lady that I was working with went, oh, I don't have any problems anymore. I'm like, perfect, done, boom.
Mhm.
So yes, I think we all come from that space of less is best, better. Sometimes we can resolve. I use a lot of EMDR. I've looked at. I like brain spotting an awful lot as well. But the part you were talking about, and I'd not heard about it, which is really cool, was systemic modeling and clean language, because that's what you work with. That's the biggest part of your modality now. So
Yeah.
explain what clean language and systemic modeling is.
There's a there was rather a New Zealand psychiatrist, David Grove,
Yeah,
and he was working with Vietnam vets.
yeah,
He was getting extraordinary results with these veterans. And there was a couple, Penny and James, they went to model what David Grove was doing in his language patterns. So they formulated with David Grove was clean language. And clean language is all about looking at the adjacencies to the problem. So people are then finding their own solutions within that problem itself.
right.
And then they introduced Caitlin Walker to David Grove as well. And she then said, right, I can actually use this within group settings.
Yeah,
So one of the big things that she's done was working with is disenfranchised school children, and they map and model each other, and they can go, oh, such and such isn't able to understand you because their model is like this and you're talking too quick. So there's a lot of metaphors. So, for example, one person's metaphor was about you're talking too fast, so her pond it's not smooth, it's ripply, and there's waves in it. So you need to slow your speech down. She said, oh, okay, that's useful. Yeah. And these kids were able to go, my switch is like this before I see red. So then they're able to access that switch and turn that switch off before they get angry. And these kids went on from disenfranchised school kids into being able to achieve and attain better school grades.
Was this is not what the Michelle Pfeiffer movie was filmed on, right?
No,
It's
no,
not,
no, 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 no.
no, that was something different. Right, just checking, that's fine. Clean language and
Yes.
metaphor and understand. Right, I'm gonna have to look into this then. And that's clean language. Is that what it's called? Clean language therapy.
Clean language, yeah, it's open source format.
So what does open source
So
format?
anybody can use it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is that like NLP? NLP being an open source format?
Well, I think that's what Penny James's background is NLP.
We both know a lot about NLP, it's funny how NLP still not understood. There's still a lot of knocks to NLP.
Yeah, yeah.
But it kind of is the forefather to absolutely everything. CBT, life coaching.
And if you go on Wikipedia, it calls it a pseudoscience.
A pseudoscience, which is like there's no proof to it, right?
Yeah. But then if other modalities are taken off, there's got to be something to it.
I mean, EMDR is just I think actually EMDR was Francine Shapiro, which she was.
No,
I think she was.
That was John Grinder. John Grinder gave her the instruction or how to structure EMDR.
No, not according to Francine Shapiro. So
No.
Francine Shapiro said her story is I was walking down the street for a walk, and I noticed that when I moved my eyes left to right when I was thinking about a problem, the problem didn't bother me anymore. Yeah. So now I know when I was listening, when I went through the books, I coach people in EMDR now. When we were going through even I was like, it's just NLP, because there's a part of NLP that says if you look with the eyes here, but brain spotting goes even further into the eyes about desensitizing and depotentiating the problem with the memories.
Yeah. So my understanding is Francine Shapiro was a researcher for John Grinder.
Right.
She then was talking about whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he said, right, here's a modality for you, go away and use it. And he was quite happy for her to have open source and do it as she was. And the thing that upset John Grinder was she was getting her clients and students to sign NDAs. That's why he sued her.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my understanding anyway. And that's from John Grinder himself.
Oh, that's fantastic. I wasn't aware of that, because once I started looking into EMDR, I found out about havening, and then from havening, I found out about brain spotting.
Mm-hmm.
And I find brain spotting absolutely fantastic, and somatic healing I find absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But if I'm honest, I had a conversation with someone recently about meditation, hypnotism, and I was like, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. And my friend was saying, no, it's not. It's completely different, Cuddy. I'm like, it's not. And the more and more research I look into it, there's no difference between hypnotism and meditation. And I love the fact that meditation is so powerful.
Yeah.
I love how powerful meditation is. It's a fantastic thing to help people.
It's just a word for the same thing, isn't it? I think.
It is.
Trance, meditation, hypnosis, similar things.
Absolutely. I love it. I absolutely love how powerful meditation is, and now breath work as well. I'm a big fan of breath work. I do that a lot with the clients. So when you're working with people coming out of the army and things like that, what's some of the things that people from the army genuinely struggle with, Rich?
One of the biggest things is identity. Who am I going to be next?
Identity. And one of the strongest forces in life is identity.
Identity, beliefs, boundaries and all that. So you can imagine we come out for that structured environment, and within that structured environment, it's highly flexible within there, as long as you're sticking to that kind of structure. Sounds a contradiction, I know. When we've left, there's that huge grey spaces, if you were, and it's trying to find out where you're fitting with that grey space. So you're kind of bouncing around. A lot of people go from job to job to job because they don't know what job it is to fulfill them or what their role is in with life. Because potentially coming out, moving to a different town, city, village, you don't know anybody, you have no community as such, and you're completely lost. So that's another big factor is about community and who your friends group are, because what happens afterwards, essentially, you leave your unit, your regiment, whomever it is, and you never hear from them again. There's no follow-up calls, there's nothing. So it's a case of being abandoned as well.
Now, all these, for anyone, it kind of sounds like these are all trauma responses as well.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Because there's the big T and the little T when it comes to trauma responses. But so I'll take your view on this, because I think opinion's great to have, but point of view. When it comes to trauma, big T's and little T's, do we think as a nation or as a world we're starting to look in and say that everything's a trauma when everything's not a trauma? Or are we always, what's your thoughts on that, Rich?
I think it's people's perceptions. Are you talking about after an event, or are you talking about injuries caused by abandonment? You talk about injuries caused by witnessing something.
Because that's a trauma for even witnessing something horrific is technically
vicarious trauma.
Yes, that's absolutely, that's just witnessing it. We can still take on and manifest that pain by witnessing it, because the brain doesn't know whether we're within it, in it, or watched it. It still has the same effects on us.
Yeah.
Do you think this is making us? Do you think the awareness of understanding big traumas and little traumas is going to be a helpful and benefit to the nation, or do you think it makes us become more susceptible to have a reason for there's something wrong with me?
I wouldn't have a question. I wouldn't be able to answer that.
It's a good question. It is a good question, though, right?
It is.
Did I put you too much on the spot there, Rich?
Possibly. I think it's good to have the understanding of it.
Yes.
But again, it's people who they're walking down the street or something, and they may get hit in the face by a bag or whatever, or a bird shits on them. They go, "Oh, that's traumatic. That is." No, that's just unlucky.
Meaning.
Yeah, it's the meaning behind it.
We talked about, so that was when I came onto your talk, and I was like, from my understanding of trauma and whatever, meaning will be one of the biggest deciphers to the traumatic experience, the meaning we create. Because I've worked with people who have had the big T's.
Yeah,
and they're like,
absolutely.
no, I'm all right with that. This is what bothers me. I'm like, why? Well, that's just unfortunate. But this bothered me. The bird shitting on my head actually bothers me because I couldn't comprehend unluckiness to that had got nothing to do with me. That was unfortunate. Meaning they had a different understanding. And it's meaning, it's just one of the most powerful things that we can reframe within our lives to everything that's happened to us or happening. If we can change the meaning, and as coaches, it helps people. So is that what clean language does? Do we help create better meaning?
It helps people understand their system.
Right.
So if you think yourself as a computer system, clean language comes along and it's like a patch, as it were.
Yeah.
So it helps install a patch in you, and you go, oh, okay, I understand myself a little bit better.
Yeah.
I understand other people a little bit better.
Yeah.
And with that, you're updating updating your own internal system, even after you finish like a 6-week program with us.
Yeah.
And then, so that's a lifelong skill you've learned. You've learned how to communicate better. You've learned how to update your system. You've learned how to communicate better with other people.
I'm going to look into this. I'm genuinely going to look into this.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I love that an awful lot.
It's used in everything from sports coaching agile, lean, obviously therapies, you name it. You can use it anywhere.
Oh, I love it. Something new. I love that. That gives me something to create. I love that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So, how do we get in contact with you, Rich?
So my email address is up there via website, whatmakesadifference.org.
Yep.
And you can contact us at hello@whatmakesadifference.
Fantastic. So, who are you looking for, Rich? Who's your perfect avatar? Not avatar, but who's the person that people you want to speak to?
It's people who are transitioning from service life or who already transitioned from there and then looking for extra bit of support, extra bit of coaching to be able to go, yeah, this is what I need to be able to make that smoother transition, really.
What the biggest thing when it comes to coaching is how do people know that they need your service? What is it they're going to be struggling with and thinking, why can't I do this on my own? Or why is it being so hard? What's the kind of things that they're going to be saying and thinking?
Are they drinking more? Are they feeling anxious about maybe going for an interview? Are they looking at maybe what is my next career step? How do I fit in within my community? How do I fit in with the family? How does family fit in with me?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Rich Hilton, the man, the myth, the legend, working with men on their mental health. If there's anything that you could give any gentleman struggling with their mental health right now, what top 2 tips would you give out now? Say, this is what you want to do.
Self-care.
And what do you mean by self-care?
That is looking out, taking yourself first. It's the old adage of on the airplane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oxygen mask on first before you look after everybody else.
And what does self-care look like for men?
That could be whatever it means to someone. So that could be going down the gym. It could be going for a walk. It could be reading a book. Just taking 5-10 minutes out of the day just to relax and refresh your mind.
Do you know I've started doing it with car cleaning?
Yeah.
I find car cleaning and car detailing the most meditative process ever. The amount of absolutely amazing. And do you know, I've noticed I get crabby when I'm not washing the car. I genuinely get crabby when I'm not washing the car because that
Yeah.
motion, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a TikTok on it. I'm like, this is my meditation.
Uh-huh.
Car detailing. I get so.
I'll be up there. I'm heading up towards you at the end of July, mate. So
Bring the car in. Bring the
I will,
car in.
mate.
It's gonna be
I
an extra
expect
job.
some. I'll have some flames going down the side.
What's the second thing? Self-care is number 1. What's number 2?
What is the solution to your problem? It's not all about the feelings. It's about what solution works for you. In a positive solution. It's not the bottom of a beer barrel.
So, do you know what? I was going to wrap up, but I've got a feeling we're going to start a whole new podcast here. Right. Now, it's not about the feelings. What does that mean? Because, Rich, I think we are vibing on this one.
Yeah.
Feelings are not facts. So let's talk
Yes.
about feelings, Rich. What's your take on feelings?
Obviously, feelings do matter, and feelings are essential. Otherwise, we'd be just dead inside, wouldn't we?
Correct.
It's feeling and it's ruminating on those thoughts and ideas. You're not your thoughts and you're not ideas. Is that feeling of anxiety useful for you? Is it really true what you're thinking about going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all those negative feelings. Like having a bit of anxiety is good. It helps you progress and do stuff, but letting that overtake you and take control of you isn't a good sensation, is it?
No.
It's crippling.
Yeah. Feelings matter, but they're not facts.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be the headline for this podcast.
Awesome. Where can I find the podcast,
I
Cuddy?
always create a title for the podcast in the podcast.
Yeah.
Feelings matter. I'm writing it down. Feelings matter, but they're not facts.
Exactly. It's like opinions like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Well, I'll share my version because I've not dared say it yet, but I've got yours is very close genital area, but I've got a different way of saying it. But I think,
Yeah.
honestly, Rich, thank you very much for being on the
Awesome.
podcast. I'll put your details in the bio once I up the podcast. It's Men's Mental Health month, June 10 to 16, but we're trying to make it into a month to create awareness for men. If it's in the mind, it can be managed. I'm a mind management coach, and the amount of people I've been working with recently, from CEOs of businesses to 14-year-old girls who've been struggling to manage their minds. And people will say, "Could you can't work with CFOs or CEOs of businesses and 14-year-old girls don't understand?" I'm like, you can, because it's beliefs. It's it's beliefs, it's beliefs, and that's what mind management is all about: is helping people understand and decode and reprocess those memories and beliefs. Thank you so much, Mr. Hilton. Mr.
Thank you.
Hilton.
Thank you, Cody.
Have you know.
So kind.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast. As always, if it's in the mind, it can be managed. And big love from Betty.